years ago, I started this healing journey with absolutely no roadmap. I didn't even know what the word healing meant. I couldn't keep living the way I was living. I was in survival mode and I needed help. Hi, I'm Carole and I want to welcome you to Carole Cares. Today I want to share with you 10 powerful lessons that my healing taught me. And if you're walking your own healing path, this video is definitely for you. Lesson 1. Not everyone will support, validate, or even understand your healing journey. This was probably the hardest lesson I had to learn because I didn't see it coming. When I finally found my trauma coach, I finally found someone who actually understood me, someone who got me, and I felt for the first time that I was finally getting somewhere. After years of going in and out of therapy and really only scratching the surface, I could tell that I was starting to heal. Something was shifting inside of me. And for the first time, I started to feel good about myself. And obviously, I couldn't wait to share this feeling with people that were close to me, like my spouse, my family members, and my closest friends. And I actually thought that they were going to be my biggest cheerleaders. I was so excited to share it with them. But instead, some of them pulled away. And some of my family members from my family of origin wanted me to stay silent, and especially when I started this channel. And there were others who denied parts of my stories, as if for them, supporting me would force them to confront something that they weren't willing to look at. So it was heartbreaking, to say the least, because these were the people that I really thought were going to support me. And some even tried to tear me down. And I don't think it was because they were being malicious, really. I just think that my healing made them feel really uncomfortable. And the shock of this, or maybe you can call it irony, was that all I ever wanted to do was to heal. But what I didn't realize was that not everyone would support me. And not everyone could have come along with me. So if you're on your own healing journey, you've probably experienced this already, or maybe you're experiencing, and there's something that I want you to know. Even if no one can support you, even if no one can validate you or understand what you're going through, it doesn't mean that your healing is not true or it's not valid. In the beginning, I was really fortunate because my own life coach was there to support me when these people couldn't validate me. But what's really beautiful about this journey, because I've been doing it intensively for 8 years, is that I get to hold myself up now. Sure, I lean on my life coach still for, the big memories that come up, but I can get myself through the pain now of people not validating me anymore. I've learned how to stand in my truth, no matter what, even if no one else stands with me. And that brings me to the next lesson. Lesson 2, you will lose people along the way. So when you begin to heal, people are going to start to notice. And some will admire your strength and others won't. So even though your healing is deeply personal to you and it doesn't involve anybody else, you will quickly find out how other people feel about your growth. You'll hear it in their words. You'll see it in their behavior. And often, they're going to make it about them. You're going to find that people are going to project their own fears and their insecurities on you. And some of them are going to want you to stay that same version of yourself that they were comfortable with. But the truth is, you're going to find as you go on and on this journey, that version of you is no longer. Once you commit to your healing, the train has left the station and not everyone gets a ticket. So what's going to happen is that you're going to start to see clearly who is meant to be part of your life moving forward and who no longer fits where you're headed. For me, that meant going no contact with my entire family of origin. It was a painful decision at the time, but I knew it was an essential one because I learned early on that they couldn't support me and they were not going to validate me. Not then and not now. I've also lost a number of friends and acquaintances. And again, it wasn't easy, but I've come to understand now that it was necessary. When you prioritize your own healing, you naturally shift. Your energy changes. And when that happens, the people, the places, the patterns that no longer align with you will begin to fall away. And here's the tip I think that's really important that I want to leave with you. Just because these people are falling away, just because you're letting go of people, it doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It just means you're caring more about you. You can still love people, but you grieve that loss of what you hoped those relationships would have been. And what you're doing is you're honoring those parts of you that needed for so long to feel safe, seen, and protected. It takes a lot of courage to walk away from what's familiar in order to find peace. And honoring that courage is a huge part of your healing. The more you choose yourself, the more you'll find the clarity to let go of what no longer serves you. And that leads to the next lesson. Lesson 3, you cannot force someone else to heal. When I began to heal and I saw what it was doing for me, I felt like I was discovering something that was so life-changing. I was reconnecting with myself. It made me feel so lighter, more alive, more grounded. And naturally, I wanted everyone I loved to feel the same way. And then I wanted to tell everyone they could be free. I wanted them so badly to feel how I was feeling. I wanted them to get on the train with me. But the lesson, and I'm going to tell you this one, I had to learn more than once. And honestly, it still shows up from time to time. Just because I'm choosing to heal doesn't mean everyone else will. And just because I can see someone else's pain, it doesn't mean they're ready or even willing to do the work to heal it. In the beginning, I thought maybe I could inspire people to heal. And maybe if I modeled it well enough, they'd jump on board. And I thought that if I maybe tried to explain it to them gently or in a real passionate way, they definitely want to come with me. But the truth is, healing is a choice, and everyone has to make that choice for themselves. What I've found is that all you can do is to plant seeds for other people, offer them love, and continue to share your truth. But the timing, and especially the willingness to want to heal, has to come from them. And sometimes it never does. So here's the takeaway that I want to offer you. You're not responsible for anyone else's healing. You can care, you can hope, but you can't carry them. Trying to do so will only distract you from your own healing. So instead of trying to pull others along, focus on becoming the fullest, most healed version of you. And that leads me to my next lesson, because there's something that you really need to know. Lesson 4. You need to be in a safe place in order to heal. Now, I know this might be the part that you're tempted to skip because we want to believe that we're in a safe place. We can tell ourselves that we're protected, we're loved, and we're being cared for. But sometimes there's something deep down that feels off. The truth is, you can convince yourself that you're safe while living in the very environment that's keeping you stuck. Safety isn't a luxury on this journey. It's essential, especially when you're healing from complex trauma like myself. I didn't realize how much trauma I was carrying. All my memories of my sexual abuse and trafficking were buried so deep that I convinced myself that I was okay where I was. But the deeper I went into my healing, I started to realize that I hadn't been living. I was just surviving. And the biggest wake-up call in all of this was that I was in a place that I wasn't safe. Not physically, not emotionally, and not spiritually. You can be in a relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic or even in family, and you think you're safe, but you're not. Some of the most unsafe relationships will feel the most familiar to us because they mirror what we grew up with. So until we become more aware, we're going to repeat these same patterns, and we can't heal if we're being re-traumatized. And that's what I had to learn. I was healing, but the real deep healing didn't start for me until I got myself into a safe environment. And I realized that I couldn't wait for other people to change in my life. I had to choose my own safety first. So if you're finding that you're walking on eggshells and your nervous system is always on edge, I want you to hear this. You deserve to feel safe. You don't need to earn it, and you don't need to explain it to anyone. Your inner children, and those are the parts of you that will carry your trauma and your memories and all your big emotions, can only come forward when they feel safe. And you are the one who has to create that safety for them now. Because once you do, that's when the real healing is going to take place. And that brings me to the next lesson. Lesson 5. Spending time alone is very important on this journey. There's a part of healing that no one really talks about, and that's how much time you need to spend alone on this healing journey. Now, I don't mean cutting everyone off and disappearing totally, but depending on what you're healing, you're going to need some space. And sometimes that space that you're going to need is not optional. It becomes necessary, and that was my case. We live in a very distracted world, and we fill our days with noise and people and obligations. And often it's because we're avoiding being alone with ourselves. But healing requires stillness. It asks you to slow down, to turn inward, and to feel. You need to sit with your pain, with your memories and your emotions, because no one else can do that for you. Not your therapist, not your partner, and not even your most loving friend. For a long time on this journey, I kept hoping that there was going to be someone who would come and save me. That if someone just loved me, if I could find someone to love me, then I'd be whole again. And I think I actually thought that if someone came to save me, I wouldn't have to do this healing. But here's the truth. There's no one coming to save you. Not because they don't care. It's because they can't. This is your work. This is your path. And you're the only one who can walk it. Spending time alone helps you reconnect with yourself. And what it does is it clears out the noise so that you can finally hear your own voice. That one that's hidden under survival, people pleasing, and silence. And it's in that stillness with yourself that you're going to start to see some of your patterns and your conditioning, your belief systems, and your pain. And you're going to start to build this new relationship with yourself that's rooted in trust, self-compassion, and truth. It's in this part of the journey when you start to carve out that stillness for yourself, that quiet time alone with you, where you start to begin to remember who you truly are. And your authentic self is going to start to emerge. And as you dive deeper into your healing, you'll begin to realize that in order to heal on a deeper level, you need to feel more deeply. And that leads me into my next lesson. Lesson 6, you have to feel to heal. This is the part of the journey that everyone tries to avoid because this journey isn't just hard, it's also emotional. And our protective self, our ego, wants nothing to do with emotions. The ego self is a very scared part, and it's actually petrified of what might happen if we let ourselves feel these emotions like fear and anger and shame and especially grief. It actually thinks we might die. And I'm not kidding. So what do we do about this? Or I should say, what does the ego do about this? Well, the ego is going to try to shut down your emotions. It's going to try to numb them out by distracting us, by scrolling endlessly on our phone, by binging on Netflix, overeating, overworking, overdrinking, smoking weed, gambling, staying busy. And we tell ourselves we're fine, but we're not. We're running. And what we're running from is the one thing that needs our attention, our pain. And I think the most important thing about emotions that you need to know and you need to remember is that by avoiding them doesn't make them disappear. Our body keeps the score. So these unprocessed emotions that are sitting in our body, the ones that we continue to push down, well, they fester. And so they become illness and disease and anxiety. They don't go away. So I've tried to bypass the pain. I've tried to take the detours, but I know that none of them work now. Because the truth is, the only way out is through it. I know now that I have to feel the grief. I have to feel the shame, the loneliness, the hopelessness, and the rage. And that's the only way that I can move the pain out of my body. Emotions are energy and they're meant to move. They're not meant to get stuck in our body. And so when we feel them, we give them a way out. And in doing so, we create space for healing. So this is what I've learned about my emotions. The actual feeling the emotions isn't the struggle. That's not what causes the pain. What causes the pain is all the ways that we can resist or numb or avoid and shut down that make it harder. So in other words, the pain doesn't come from feeling the emotions. The pain comes from everything we do to avoid feeling them. To really feel on a deep level, you have to be connected to your body. You have to be in your body because that's where emotions are. They're not up in our head. And if you're not grounded in your body, you're stuck up in your head. And to be honest, that's where your ego wants you to stay because there's no emotions there. So it's a safe place. And that leads me to my next lesson. Lesson 7, emotions live in the body. So you have to be grounded to feel them. One of the most important lessons I've learned is this. You can't heal what you can't feel. And you can't feel if you're not grounded. But most of us begin our healing journey completely disconnected from our body. We live in our heads, analyzing, overthinking, trying to make sense of everything through logic. But healing doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the nervous system. It happens in the tissues, in the parts of us that have been holding on to our pain for years. Because of trauma, many of us learn to dissociate at a very young age. It's actually our ego self who protected us when we were younger. And what it did was it pulled us out of our body and into our head because that was the safe place. As a child, you actually didn't have the brain development to be able to handle these big emotions that were connected to any trauma that would have happened to you when you were younger. So being in the body was not a safe place for us, especially if we were told to put away certain emotions that we tried to use. So now what's happening on this healing journey as adults, we're having to feel these big emotions for the younger parts of us that couldn't feel them. And in order to do that, we have to go back into the body. And that can be a really uncomfortable thing for us because we're not used to living from our body. It's actually a foreign feeling for most of us. And so we have to learn how to ground into the body to get back into the body. So even now for me, when I can feel big emotions coming up, my first instinct is to go up into my head to dissociate. I'm learning now that I need to go and ground so I can stay with the emotion and feel it. I can spend periods of time still very ungrounded and dissociated because I'm defending. My ego does not want me to get back into that body and feel my emotions. But what I know now is that without grounding into my body, I can't access those emotions. And without feeling my emotions, there's no release. So healing is a beautiful thing because it invites us to come back to the body, to spend time in the body, even if it's just for a few moments, and to recognize what it feels like to be grounded and then to feel like what it is to be dissociated. If you can start to know the difference between those two, that awareness is actually so empowering for you because it tells you that you're starting to wake up. You're starting to become more present. And that's where the real work begins. And that's going to lead me to my next lesson. Lesson 8, I have to journal from my emotions. One of the most important tools that I've learned on my journey that my life coach taught me was how to journal from my emotions. For me, I do parts therapy with my life coach. So healing from my complex trauma hasn't just been about remembering my memories. It's been about reconnecting with those inner parts of myself that had to live through the trauma. And these are the inner parts, my inner children that have been ignored and silenced and forgotten all these years. So these inner parts, like my inner children, they carry my trauma, they carry all my memories, and they carry these big emotions that are connected to it that they couldn't feel when they were younger. And over time, what's happened is that I've realized that my inner children need a voice now. You know, they need to tell me what happened. They need to tell me how they felt because they need to be heard and they need to be understood. So journaling gives them that voice. So when I'm writing, I'm not just telling a story. I'm actually listening to them. I let them tell me what they're afraid of. I let them tell me what they need and what they remember. So through my journaling, I'm holding space for myself in a way that no one ever did. And so the relationship that I build with my inner parts through my journaling is what has helped me to heal. It's been my lifeline. Not only for surviving, but for transforming myself. So if you're on this journey, I encourage you to write, because sometimes the most powerful healing happens on the page. And through that process of journaling, I discovered another profound realization. Lesson 9, the truth will set you free. Healing has a way of uncovering and bringing these long buried truths to the surface. Truths that we've spent years and maybe our entire lifetime trying to protect ourselves from. For me, healing meant coming face to face with so many painful childhood memories that I had repressed my entire life. Through journaling and grounding and deep inner parts work, I have uncovered things that have absolutely shook me to my core. So one of the hardest things on this healing journey was believing my own story. At first I didn't. It took me a long time. I doubted it. I minimized it. And there was no way I wanted to accept what I was uncovering. But the more layers of deceit I uncovered, the deeper I went, and the more undeniable the truth became. And there was no way I could continue to ignore my story. There was no going back to pretend that this didn't happen when it clearly did. So I had to make the decision to stay present with the pain, to feel it, to process it, and to allow it to change me. And slowly, that's when the shift began. I began to feel what freedom tasted like. I had never felt that before. And I realized that it wasn't the truth of my story that was hurting me. It was the denial of it. So believing myself, and I mean really fully believing what happened to me, was what started to heal me in ways I never thought possible. I believe me now, and that's all that matters. And that alone changed everything for me, because it finally set me free. Because I didn't have to hold it inside anymore. I didn't have to carry this pain. Speaking my truth and continuing to speak my truth is what sets me free. And now the final lesson, lesson 10. Healing yourself is a journey. This decision to go on this journey to heal myself has been by far the most difficult and the most courageous thing that I've ever had to do for myself. If you had asked me when I first started this journey when I was going to be done, my response would have been hopefully soon. But now I know better. Healing isn't a finish line you cross. It's not a goal you check off your list. So there's no such thing as I've healed, I'm done, it's over. You're always healing. You're always growing, because it's a lifelong relationship with yourself. There are days where your pain will feel lighter, and there are days when your pain is going to feel absolutely unbearable. Healing is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about being human. I still make mistakes. I fall into old patterns sometimes, but I keep showing up for myself because I know I have to, because I know no one else can do this for me. And I matter now, and I choose me in a way that no one else did when I was a child. So every time you listen to your body, you speak your truth, you feel your feelings, you write your story, you are healing. You are showing up for you, and that in itself is enough. So this has been, without a doubt, the most painful journey of my life, but it's also the most important one, because it's brought me back to the person I was meant to be, my true, authentic self. And that's the freedom I spent my whole entire life chasing. Healing yourself is the most courageous act of love you can give to the child you once were and to the person you are becoming. This path isn't easy, but it's worth it. So even if no one supports you or stands by you or understands you or sees the pain that you've gone through to get this far, you know, and that's all that matters. That knowing is enough. So keep going.